Cop and investigation shows are all over TV. People just seem to have this fascination with crime. And the topic of the day is crime fiction. Hi, I'm Justine and this is Bookends. Today I'm going to chat with Jeffrey Round, a Toronto author. His newest book is called Lake on the Mountain. It's about a gay missing persons investigator who becomes involved in the case of a dead woman and at the same time a man who's been missing for over 20 years. Now for crime fiction, there's no better bookstore than Sleuth of Baker Street, so we're here to get a few other recommendations from the owner. Let's go on in. I've got Jeffrey Round with me, author of Lake on the Mountain. Jeffrey, thanks so much for meeting up with us.
My pleasure, Justine.
So when you're writing a crime novel, the process, how do you figure out how much information to reveal, or is that even something that you think about when you're writing?
It's a touchy-feely kind of thing. I feel it out as I go. Is this a little too much here, a little too much there? Then I pull back. Sometimes I'll take something out of one chapter, put it in another, see if it works a little better there. It's very intuitive.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that your editor goes through with you when they read it and they say, I think you've revealed too much?
Yeah, editors are kind of a filter for what you do right and for what you do wrong, and they will say, if this person knows this at this point, then how come nobody else knows it? Or they give me an option of how it might work better.
What kind of research did you do for the book? Because, there's times when you talk about, you compare, say, city cops to small town cops. How do you know that? Like, what kind of research did you do?
Well, part of it's personal. I have 3 law officers in my family. So I pass things back to them and say, what do you think about this? And they go, oh, no way, that doesn't work. The research actually comes from trips. I'm a big travel guy, and I find that a location will inspire me. And I'll think, okay, what if we have somebody taking a trip here, but then you throw in a murder and see what happens.
Now, you've written murder mysteries before, but they were a little bit different because they were comic. But what is it about, crime and mystery that attracts you in writing?
It's one of many things that attracts me. The travel element is really a strong point with me. My previous book to this took place during the Bosnian War. It's not a mystery. But the elements that attract me are the pulling through of the plot line. It's a very urgent plot when you have a mystery. Things just happen very rapidly. I usually time them out on a grid. I'll say day 1 and day 10 if that's the amount of time I'm using.
The main character in this book seems to have a grudge against Toronto. Does that come from you yourself?
Not currently, no.
But you have had before?
I have had. I grew up in Halifax, which is a very people-friendly town, and Toronto's a little bit cold. It's getting better. There's a new generation of which you are part that I think is friendlier, more just generous in nature. But, about 10 years ago, I thought, I don't like this city very much anymore. So.
And what was it about that you didn't like about Toronto?
Particularly some unpleasant neighbors. Yeah.
Neighbors always get at you, don't
exactly.
Now, there's a lot of psychology in this book, and I've heard one author before say that you can only really write about feelings that you've experienced yourself. Would you agree with that?
No, I don't think so. You want to step outside of yourself. You can observe other people going through things. You think, okay, he said this, and it's probably because of this, but it could be because of this. And, I might have experienced that emotion, but not that particular emotion. I don't like to limit myself to what I've gone through. Not that my life has been limiting in any way, but I like to think outside of me.
What part of the main character's experience is something that you've gone through? There's a lot of anger in this book, betrayal, a lot, and he's a missing persons investigator, but he's trying to find himself.
Correct.
What part of that would you say sort of comes from your own experience?
A little bit of all of that. He's also an alcoholic. I'm not much of a drinker, I'm happy to say.
Okay.
He does come from the same hometown as I do, Sudbury, which is kind of a hardcore mining town, very industrial, very northern Ontario. So we have that in common, but the factual elements are quite different. His biography would be very different from mine.
Have you had a lot of anger and, do you find yourself a very critical person as he sort of is?
I did go through a phase of that, and went to therapy for it, and talked a lot of that out. So I do see I do see things through Dan's perspective when he is angry, and I'll say, this is how I used to think of things, and it's fun to put it in a character and step back from it and analyze it.
Mm-hmm. So you went to therapy yourself. Now, the character doesn't really find the therapy to be useful in any way to him. From what I understood from the character. Was it sort of like that with you? No,
the opposite, in fact.
Huh.
But I thought that's not very interesting for a book. We need tension in there. We need something to drag the character out.
Uh-huh. So how was it useful for you?
Because I'm a writer, I'm very interior. I have a lot of thinking processes that go on in my head. When I got to speak them, say them out loud, I saw things that you don't get to see when they're in your head.
Is writing like that for yourself as well, a way to express your thoughts?
Somewhat. It's also a way to encapsulate what I am thinking, and see if I can turn it around in a way that's more pleasing to me in certain ways. When you give a character his or her comeuppance, you think, aha, that's how it should have happened in real life, but not always how it did.
And the main character is gay, and that's a big theme in this book. And there's one line that you, in the book, that I wanted to ask you about. You say that winners don't associate with queers.
Right.
Can you expand on that a little bit, what you mean by that?
That's subtle homophobia. I mean, we have political correctness now. There are certain things you don't do or say about this minority or that minority, but it's still there subtly. So the discrimination happens.
Yeah, how far do you think that has advanced this day, back to, the 80s when it was really bad?
There's a certain amount of lip service that's paid. On paper, there are now laws that protect gay people. But, you go in a bar or you step outside of Toronto, God knows, in Sudbury there's one gay bar where they still throw eggs at the door.
And there's a lot of sex in this novel as well.
Yes.
Is there a reason why you decided to do that? Like, is that part of helping along with the plot?
I hope it's integral to the plot. It is something that I felt you can't write about a gay man's life, not this particular gay man, without including the sex. It wouldn't be honest, it wouldn't be true. That's part of his rage, it's part of his anger, it's how he tries to make sense of his world.
Jeffrey, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I'm now with JD Singh of Sleuth of Baker Street. JD, I wanted to go through a couple of other recommendations that you have. But when you're reading a crime novel, what is it that makes it a good crime novel for you?
Well, I read to be entertained. And at some point, at some level, the novel that I read, if I'm going to spend time with it, has to be entertaining for me. If it's not, if I'm finding it boring, I won't hesitate to put it down.
Yep.
So it's got to please me in one way, shape, or form, at least. So now that could be the location. Yep. Sometimes the location is very interesting, and that'll keep me going. Other times, mostly I like a lot of humor in my novel, so that's what I look for. But sometimes it's the characters, that you are entranced by. You're really empathetic with a particular character, and that's what keeps you wanting to read the book. And those are the kinds of things that I'll recommend.
So obviously you find these three entertaining. Let's go through this one first. What is this one here?
Robert B. Parker has been a long favorite of mine. He's an American writer from the Boston area with, he's probably written 50 or 60 novels, and there must be some 35 novels with the Spencer character.
Yep.
This is just the most recent one. Unfortunately, he died a year or so ago, and now we're going to start getting other writers continuing the series. But entertaining, witty, good sense of humor, well written, all the things that appeal to me.
Next one here, Red Means Run. What is this one about here?
Brad Smith is a local writer. He's from the around Hamilton, I think. I lose my geography a little bit. And he's written 5 or 6 novels. This is the first, from what I understand, that is going to start a series. Virgil Kane is the character. All of his novels to date have been standalones. And this is the first one with this Virgil Kane character. Again, good sense of humor, entertaining story.
And so what's this third one here? The Reaper.
Josh Bazell is an American doctor,
Yep.
and the story is about a doctor as well, a man who used to work for the mob but is now on the run, is hiding from the mob in a hospital in New York. Again, wildly funny, reasonably dark. And some 3 odd years after this one, he's finally produced a sequel.
JD, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now you can find more info on these 3 books that JD recommends, as well as Jeffrey's book, on our website, bookendstv.com.